Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you might be today. My name is Radina, and I'm an advisor at the Technical Support Unit, or the TSU, as we call it for short, which is the Secretariat of the Mitigation Action Facility. It is my pleasure to welcome you today during today's webinar, during which we would like to introduce you to the Mitigation Action Facility and our current call for projects. Before we start, I would like to take a few minutes and ask you to fill out a survey for us, which would provide us with some background as to who is listening today. My colleague Tanisha would just post a link in the Q&A section, and would appreciate if you can take a second to fill this survey for us. Thank you for that. And again, warm welcome from Berlin, Germany. And thank you for your interest in the first webinar on Call for Projects 2023 of the Mitigation Action Facility. Before we dive deep into today's webinar, I would like to go over with you what are the goals for today's webinar. First, we would like to provide you with an overview of the Mitigation Action Facility and introduce you to the priority sectors of the Mitigation Action Facility. Second, we'll take a look at the Call for Projects 2023 and look at the call process and timeline, as well as introduce to you the new simplified project concept phase. Last but not least, we'll be taking your questions throughout the webinar and address a few as part of our Q&A session and point you to useful resources, which you can always refer to outside of this webinar. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar will be also recorded and uploaded on our website. Second, I would like to take a few minutes to introduce and show you who else is joining me today from our side, and will guide you through the different section of today's webinar. As you see me, here I'm on the right. I'm also joined on the left with Min, who's an advisor and our monitoring expert here at the TSU. Second, we also have to the right Nina, and also an advisor and our co-management lead. Last but not least, we have Tanisha, who is our program assistant as well. Everyone is based here in Berlin and happy to jump on board and walk you through the rest of the topics today. Here again is the structure of the webinar. Tanisha will say a few words about the technical overview. Nina will take the stage. No, sorry, I would take the stage again and talk to you about the Mitigation Action Facility. Then Nina will take the stage and walk you through the call for projects, key features, timelines, take a look at the project concept phase. And last but not least, as all of you are posting questions now, Tanisha and Min will take a look at some questions and we'll address these, and whatever questions we haven't been able to pick up today, we'll follow up as part of the second webinar. And if in any case you have urgent questions, you're also welcome to reach out to us directly at the contact. With no further ado, I would like to now hand over the words to Tanisha for a few aspects on the technical side.
Thank you, Radina, and hello, everyone. I will say a few points about the technical overview. This is fairly straightforward. So on the top right of your control panel, you will see that your camera is off and you are automatically muted. You can click on the Q&A button on the top half of your screen to submit your questions. Another point about the subtitles. You can see 3 dots on the top of your screen, which will say more. When you click on them, you can then click on language and speech, and further click on turn on live captions. This will give you live subtitles or captions during the webinar. You can also click on the right side for the three dots and then click on Change Caption Language, and then you can select the language that you want to see these subtitles in. And please do remember that the meeting chat is disabled, so you can post your questions in the Q&A section. That's all. Thank you. Back to you, Ratina.
Thank you, Tanisha, for guiding us over the few key features in MS Teams. And with that, I would like to now move to the next section, which I would like to provide you with a few insights as to who we are. First, the team that is speaking to you today, the Technical Support Unit, is the Secretariat of the Mitigation Action Facility. And the Mitigation Action Facility itself is the multi-donor fund with contributions from Germany, the UK, Denmark, EU, and the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, the CIF. The Mitigation Action Facility was first created in 2012 as the NAMA facility for those who have been following us for some time. At COP27 in Egypt last November, while celebrating the 10th anniversary of the NAMA facility, the board made an announcement and a name change to what is now the Mitigation Action Facility, going effective from this year to 2023. The rebranding restates the Mitigation Actions Facility's commitment to fund ambitious climate change mitigation projects, to implement the nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and long-term strategies that are central to meeting the Paris Agreement goals, while shifting towards driving the decarbonization in priority sectors. So far, the donors have committed about 668 million euros. The Mitigation Action Facility continues to operate through annual calls for projects. The calls are competitive and only the best projects are selected. As part of this webinar, we will give you an overview as to how you can participate in our current upcoming call for projects 2023, while highlighting the simplified application process, and second, how we'll be assessing your submission. As you can see on this slide, our portfolio currently consists of 47 projects in 33 countries. There are some countries that have two or three projects even, and this you can see on our map here on the left. For further information, we invite you to visit our website for more details on these projects. As with under the NAMA facility and going forward under the Mitigation Action Facility, we do not have specific regions, while as highlighted at the COP and I mentioned earlier, we do have specific sectors, namely transport, energy, industry, but also welcome cross-sectoral projects linked to one of these priority sectors. And I will be touching upon this separately in a different slide. A few words about how the facility operates. So the Mitigation Action Facility operates on the basis of competitive annual calls for projects for implementation in ODA eligible countries, which focuses on the three priority sectors. The projects at the Mitigation Action Facilities combine, on one side, technical assistance, which include measures to develop capacities in countries, provide policy support, and improve the enabling environment, and also have a financial mechanism or instrument to unlock public and private investments, scale and replicate solutions in countries, and ensure sustainability beyond projects. And my colleague Nina will provide you more details shortly on how the call for projects 2023 looks like. What makes funding from the Mitigation Action Facility attractive and why apply for funding? First, all funding provided by the facility is grant-based. It is open to all ODA eligible countries, and no accreditation is required from applicants. Support for implementation is provided. Here, the facility would provide support for the implementation of national climate plans and strategies, and throughout the project cycle, all phases, extensive advice is provided, including provision of funding support for the detailed preparation of proposals. Up to 25 million euros is available per project for the technical assistance and financial cooperation to support ambitious mitigation projects. Last but not least, at the Mitigation Action Facility, we also organize regular exchanges on cross-cutting topics such as financial mechanisms, monitoring, gender, and there's an opportunity for projects to learn from each other and with each other. Last but not least, before I hand over the word, here's a quick look at the priority sectors as I announced earlier. As I mentioned earlier, at COP27 in November in Egypt, the Mitigation Action Facilities restated its commitment to fund ambitious mitigation actions to support projects that implement nationally determined contributions and long-term strategies that are central to meeting the Paris Agreement goals while shifting towards driving decarbonization in priority sectors. The Mitigation Action Facility strives to follow the logic of the IPCC Common Reporting Framework, as well as incorporate recommendations as outlined in the Breakthrough Agenda Report 2022. According to the sixth assessment report of the IPCC report in 2021, energy, transport, and industry cumulatively accounted for more than 40 gigatons CO2 equivalent, or what makes up for 67% of the annual global greenhouse gas emissions. As I highlighted earlier, these are the three priority sectors we are going to be supporting and focusing on, while cross-sectoral projects linked to these priority sectors are also welcome. More information you can find on our FAQ section on our website. And without any further ado, I'd like to stop here and give the opportunity for Nina to give us more information on the call for projects this year.
Thank you very much, Radina. Welcome everyone from my side too. We are very excited about the upcoming call for projects 2023. It will be open from the 2nd of June. So official open application platform, but I will talk about that a bit more later. Now let's see key features of this new call for projects, which of course build upon what Radina just said and presented for the entire Mitigation Action Facility. As you see, we decided to split key features in kind of continuous aspects that are similar to what applicants that know previous calls that were held under the label of the NAMA facility, current Mitigation Action Facility, that they would know and would be acknowledged to, and some new features that are very specific to this call for projects 2023. Probably one of the key new features, and you may already heard about that, is an introduction of the project concept phase. This project concept phase will be mandatory, and it will the applicants will only be required to submit to fill in a so-called short questionnaire or survey in an open application platform. We refer to it as OAP, and it will be step-by-step questionnaire with questions that are based that will require afterwards further elaboration in the project outline, but all in all, it will be around 6-7 pages document without any additional supplementary documents. So applicants will only need to fill in the questionnaire, submit it, and will not required there will be no expectation on the side of the Mitigation Action Facility that additional supplementary documents are provided. As I said, project concept phase will be mandatory. A bit later, I will show you where it is located in the project cycle of the mitigation action facility. But so far, kind of just general information for your understanding that project concept phase as mandatory phase will precede the submission of project outlines. As you see on the slides, up to 25 project concepts will be selected to proceed into the project outline phase. So this is an agreed limit independently from the number of project concepts that we will receive overall. Those selected project concepts will be given with time to develop a full-fledged project outline, which will follow a structure similar to the previous calls of the mitigation action facility, with the necessity of developing conditional annexes and submitting those documents. But again, this is not the focus of this webinar. With this webinar, we want to raise your awareness about the project concept phase and about the fact that it is simple. We see it as an approach and as a way to simplify the application process to mitigation action facility, open the mitigation action facility and the calls for projects to a very wide range of applicants, and enable you to let us know about your ideas and concepts for ambitious reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And other new features include focus on 3 priority sectors. Radina has already mentioned it, and we would encourage you to go to the website of the Mitigation Action Facility, to the call section, and to read through FAQs to understand better what is included in the scope of energy, transport, and industry sectors. What is important to highlight is, of course, that cross-sectoral projects linked to one of the priority sectors are welcome. You can find examples on our website too. Ambitious enhanced nationally determined contributions will be an assessment criterion in this call for projects. This is an important information for those who are aware of the requirements of the 2 previous calls held under the label of the RAMA facility, namely Ambition Initiative Call and Ambition Initiative Round 2. Their enhanced nationally determined contributions were an eligibility criterion. This is not the case anymore. Again, we would like to emphasize that NDCs will always be part of the criteria of the mitigation action facility in the selection of the projects. But in the call for project 2023, it will be an assessment criteria in a row of a number of other assessment criteria. What is also important, another new aspect which will be interesting for new applicants who don't know the mitigation action facility or its predecessor very well. So in this call, it will be possible for a limited number of promising project concepts to receive support in the development of outlines. The decision on which and on the number and on the qualities of this project concept receiving support will be made by the board of the mitigation action facility. And as I said, of course, there are a lot of features that will continuously be applied, that are continuously applied throughout all calls of the mitigation action facility. Of course, as I said before, it's a focus on the implementation of nationally determined contributions and long-term strategies. It is contribution of the projects to the UNFCCC negotiation process. And of course, it is an emphasis on global cooperation. So it is a synergies, let's say, with in particular NDC partnership and NDC partnership plans. As Radina mentioned before, we always provide grant-based financing, but we provide it to the projects that always combine technical assistance and financial cooperation. And financial cooperation is a tool to designing, implementing financial mechanisms, financial instruments that are market-based, sustainable, and scalable. Overall funding volume of the call is similar to the previous calls of the mitigation action facility, which is up to 100 million euro. And the upper funding volume per project is similar to what you have seen in the Ambition Initiative and Ambition Initiative Round 2, which is 25 million euro. So the project can apply for funding with a maximum volume of 25 million euro. There is still option for projects that target novel technologies, innovative technologies, to offer a piloting modality, to have a pilot within the project. You can find some examples of the novel technologies on our website in the FAQ section, and we will make sure to enrich those examples with additional, to provide additional examples to you. And of course, again, another continuous aspect is that both public and private actors are invited to submit project concepts. As I said before, with the introduction of the project concept phase, we want to open the call for projects 2023 to even wider range of applicants. So everyone is invited to participate in the call. On the next slide, you will see a visual representation of the project cycle of the Mitigation Action Facility, and we'll see where the project concept phase is located. So basically starting with the call launch, step 3, development and submission of concepts. This is what you will have to do directly after the official opening of the call. I will provide you with key dates a bit later. Now you can already mark it up, save the date. The call will officially open on the 2nd June 2023, and the submission of the project concepts will be possible until 31st July 2023. So between 2nd June and 31st July would be your time to submit to us a project concept. Since it is a mandatory phase, without submitting a project concept, you will not be able to participate further in the next steps of the call and in the next steps of the project cycle as you see them on the screen. So it's very important to keep those dates in mind. And if you want to participate in the call, to submit your project concepts until the 31st of July. Deadline is 3 p.m. Central European Summer Time. We will repeat it throughout the webinar a few times so that you remember it very well. So our idea and our message would be, go through the general information document, read everything, understand very well what the project cycle of the Mitigation Action Facility is. But now please focus on the project concept phase, because this is what will enable potentially your participation in the next steps of the assessment and selection within the call for projects 2023. So now you will see again the key dates. The call will be launched, as I said before, on the 2nd June during the side event at the Global NDC Conference, side event of the Mitigation Action Facility. So the open application platform, we will publish the link, of course, on our website. It will be open for submission of project concept from 2nd June until 31st of July. It means that you can start with developing your ideas already now, but the submission, the platform itself will be open for submissions from 2nd June until 31st July. Then assessment and selection of project concepts. The dates are tentative, but we assume that it will take place in August, September 2023. So for the projects selected, for the project concept selected to move forward in the project cycle, they will be invited to submit project outlines on the 1st of October. And the project outline phase will then last from the 1st of October until 31st December 2023. Assessment and selection of project outlines then will take place in January, March 2024. Again, it may sound complicated, a lot of dates, but we would like you to focus on the project concept phase. Again, it is mandatory, so you will have to submit project concept in order to participate in the call and in the further steps of the call. And the deadlines for submitting, the dates for submitting a project concept is 2nd June to 31st July 2023. So that's it for key deadlines and key aspects on project cycle. Now you may wonder what in general we are looking for in our projects. Partially, it corresponds, of course, to what Radina said before in terms of ODA eligibility and focus on 3 priority sectors. But for your convenience, I will go again through the necessary key project characteristics that we are looking for. So first of all, funding qualifies as official development assistance finance. This is clear. The project should be implemented in one of the 3 priority sectors or propose a cross-sectoral approach. Three priority sectors are energy, transport, and industry. Cross-sectoral projects would be attached to at least one priority sectors, would be linked to at least one of priority sectors. You can find examples, as I said before, on our website, but one of the good examples of a cross-sectoral project would be biomass to energy. So where you link either agricultural project from an agricultural field or waste with the energy sector, because ultimately the implementation of the project will contribute to energy security, will provide additional source of clean energy. So that's why there is a clear link to the energy sector. The project, of course, should be embedded in national development strategies and plans. If there is an NDC partnership plan, the project should be aligned with the partnership plan, or at least NDCP activities in countries. So certain engagement with NDCP and country facilitators would be required. It should not be formalized or institutionalized within the project, but at some point there will be a question from the Mitigation Action Facility on the alignment and synergies with NDCP. And also alignment with NDCP is one of the assessment criteria. The projects combine technical assistance, which is policies, regulations, capacity development, and financial cooperation. As said before, this is a design, development, implementation of a financial mechanism, which is market-based, which is sustainable and scalable, and able of leveraging additional public and private investment. So another characteristic that we look for in project is that they are able to mobilize additional financing beyond what is granted or provided by the Mitigation Action Facility. We need projects that are implementation ready. So it means that they can be implemented in full after a short preparation phase. And what is mentioned now more explicitly even in the strategic and framework documents of the Mitigation Action Facility is, of course, the topic of gender and social inclusion. Those two aspects are very important for the facility as a whole, as well as for the projects that we support. We want our projects to offer intersectional understanding of gender and social inclusion. It would mean moving beyond simple acknowledgement that there are gender discrimination or social discrimination based on other social aspects and social position of individuals, that there is informal sector, for example. So beyond acknowledging that we await from our projects that they will design and will foresee concrete measures and activities to address gender discrimination and social inequalities identified. More information can be found on the Mitigation Action Facility website in the gender strategy, gender action plan of the Mitigation Action Facility, and you can take a look at the GID to understand a bit more what we are looking for. But we would encourage you to take this topic rather seriously and start already from the project concept phase. Thinking about and reflecting also on the role of the project from the point of view of gender equality and social inclusion. Another important point linked to the three priority sectors is that, of course, with the introduction of three priority sectors, the Mitigation Action Facility has an opportunity to contribute to initiatives like Just Energy Transition Partnerships and the Climate Club. So we really want synergies and a clear reference to agreements with Just Energy Transition Partnerships and the Climate Club priorities should be demonstrated by the project. With that, we can move on to yet another complicated chart. But here you can see in kind of on one slide what we expect during each phase of the application of the project cycle, and who is the kind of main target audience, who is the applicant, who can serve as an applicant, and what are the different roles of implementation organizations, or what is implementation organization when we speak about that during the project cycle. Of course, again, the major focus of this webinar is the project concept phase. And what is important to highlight that the submission of concepts is open to everyone. Again, I was mentioning it already, but I want to emphasize it again. National ministries will be able to serve as applicants, and they will not be required to nominate an institution that we call applicant support partner, that is then, upon selection, contracted during the detailed preparation phase. So this so-called applicant support partner will only be, we will only ask national ministries, if they serve as applicants, to nominate an applicant support partner if the project concept is selected for the project outline phase. So at the project concept phase, national ministry or any national agency subordinated to ministries can submit the project concept, and they will not be requested to nominate a so-called applicant support partner. Another type of applicants that we refer to broadly is a legal entity. Also, no additional requirements to them. I will touch upon the issue, upon the question of what legal entity is in the next slide. But now it's important for you to understand that also there will be no additional requests or requirements to legal entities. Just submit the project concept, and that's it. If the project concept is selected for the outline phase, then the legal entity serving as an applicant will be asked to provide to demonstrate an endorsement by the ministry. It's usually line ministry and the ministry responsible for the topics of environment and climate change for UNFCCC negotiations. But again, it is something that will happen only at the project outline phase. At the project concept phase, which will be open from the 2nd June until 31st of July, national ministries or legal entities are simply asked or required to simply submit their project concept. And that's it. No additional documents, no additional nomination of additional applicant support partners, additional partners, no provision of endorsement letters. You will only be required to outline your concept at the project concept phase. And now to the topic of legal entities. It may sound very complicated, but it's basically all national and international institutions and organizations, including commercial entities. All those institutions, organizations, and entities, we refer to them broadly as legal entities, and all of them can act as applicants, applicant support partners. Again, applicant support partners is a notion we use when national ministry is an applicant. And legal entities also can serve as implementation organizations. Implementation organizations, we use this term for organizations that implement projects. So after the detailed preparation phase, the project proposal is submitted, and the project proposal is submitted already by an implementation organization. There are differences in eligibility requirements to applicants, applicant support partners, and implementation organizations. So you're invited to take a look at our general information document for more details on those topics. But what is important to remember is that eligibility criteria to applicants are minimal at the project concept phase. So please just be encouraged and be inspired as we are to submit your project concept. As I said, and one important, can we go back? Yeah, and one important capacity and eligibility requirements, I would like to highlight only aspect of the public benefit purpose, which is mandatory for each project. So individual economic advantage, commercial benefit, or profit cannot be generated with the use of the Mitigation Action Facility funds, and only reasonable costs directly related to the project plus reasonable overheads can be covered by the Mitigation Action Facility funds. Those rules are applicable, as I said, to all projects of the Mitigation Action Facility, so independently from which institution or organization or commercial entity submits the project concept. But again, it should not be a barrier in the participation of, in particular, commercial entities in their participation in the calls for projects of the Mitigation Action Facility. What is also important for specific commercial entities is that if they are based in the countries where the state aid law of the European Union applies, those commercial entities will need to ensure that their activities that will be financed through the Mitigation Action Facility will not violate the EU state aid regulations. Again, you can find more information in GID, but the main message would be that, again, all types of institutions, national, international institutions, commercial entities are very welcome to submit their project concepts as part of the Call for Projects 2023. Thank you. And now, yes, next step in this webinar, introduction of the project concept phase. I guess I've talked a lot about the project concept phase itself, but just again to make sure that it is well understood and that you also understand reasons behind us introducing this specific stage. So the purpose of the project concept phase, and I hope, yes, now you can see also the slide. It is, as I said before, simplification of the application process. We assume, we at the Mitigation Action Facility assume that those project concepts selected to proceed into the project outline phase, and it will be only 25 project concepts. It will give a certain assurance to the applicants that it is worth investing their efforts and their time and their resources into the development of the project outline, because their idea through the project concept phase will already be validated by the assessors and by the board of the Mitigation Action Facility. So broadly, despite the fact that this is an additional application phase, we still consider it to be a quite significant simplification of the process. The project concept phase will be more accessible in terms of eligibility requirements for the applicants, and it will provide a possibility to address some eligibility-related shortcomings during the outline phase, if the project concept is selected for the project outline phase, which means, again, for example, if the national ministry applies without knowing who their applicant support partner will be, there will still be time and opportunity to identify an applicant support partner during the project outline phase. So the absence of such partner during the submission of a project concept will not become a reason for rejecting the project concept, and it should not become the reason for the national ministry to not participate in the call for project. Same applies to legal entities. If they don't have an endorsement letter at the project concept phase, they should apply, because they will be able to address those aspects at the project outline phase upon selection. Also, if certain eligibility criteria, you will find them in GID, cannot be met by, for example, smaller local entity, NGO, and this problem is identified at the project concept phase, there will still be an opportunity, if the project concept is good enough to proceed to the project outline phase, then there will be opportunity for this small local NGO with limited capacity and probably not sufficient eligibility criteria to identify a partner and move on with the development of the project outline. So all in all, we are looking for a wider participation, of a wider range of potential applicants and partners. And of course, we want to receive new ideas. We want to receive more ideas to drive ambitious climate action. As a next step, I've talked a lot about the applicant support partners and their eligibility criteria. But what we also have is an eligibility criteria to project concept. So if submitted project concept would not fulfill those eligibility criteria, we won't proceed with the assessment of this project concept. So please keep them in mind. They're really simple and mainly touch upon what was discussed before as part of key characteristics of projects, or even key characteristics of the Mitigation Action Facility. So what we are looking for is a timely submission of the project concept. The deadline would be 3 p.m. Central European Summer Time, 31st July 2023. I will remind you again that the project concept phase itself will be open from 2nd June until 31st July. So just keep in mind that 3 p.m. on 31st July will be your last point in time to submit a project concept. Of course, projects should be focused on 3 priority sectors: energy, industry, and transport, or offer a cross-sectoral approach linked to one of the priority sectors. Information should be completed, but you will be guided through it in the open application platform. Information should be provided in English. The country where the project will be implemented should be eligible to receive official development assistance, but you also can consult OECD DAC list for further information. It is open to everyone and available freely online. Funding volume requested from the Mitigation Action Facility for project implementation should lie in the range of between 5 and 25 million euro, excluding DPP funding. So 5 million euro is the smallest funding volume that you can request for the implementation, and 25 million euro is the maximum that you can request for implementation. DPP funding, so funding provided by the Mitigation Action Facility for the development of a project proposal for so-called detailed preparation phase, should not be included in this range. And envisaged implementation duration should be minimum 3 years and maximum 5.5 years, so 5.5 years. More details, as usually, in the general information document. Just make sure that you go through it and read it. As I said, after checking eligibility, we all project concepts that are considered eligible based on the criteria I just talked about will be assessed. Key assessment points that are valid throughout all stages, all phases of the project cycle. So those are to different extent applied to the project concept, to the project outline, and to the project proposal, are as follows. It is mitigation potential, so we always look into the mitigation potential of the project. We look into the financial mechanism, whether the institutional setup is well defined, whether there is a clear rationale behind the proposed mechanism, what is a phase-out concept, and so on and so forth. As I said, this is a criteria, but the level of details that we are looking into differs between, of course, the project concept, project outline, and the project proposal. We are also looking into the technical and economic viability. It includes a clear description of the technology, of the mitigation technologies that the project wants to implement, and of course, appropriate business models that showcases or proves that this technology and its market takeoff can actually be viable and can be possible. And of course, we look into barrier analysis. It is one of the cornerstone, one of the starting points in developing the project concept overall. So you need to understand very well what barriers exist in the particular country, in the particular sector, that prevent the takeoff of the mitigation technology. And the project should provide a very robust analysis of the barriers, starting from behavioral, social, political ones, to economic and market barriers, in order to develop a coherent project with technical assistance, with financial mechanism that would address those barriers, and also identify synergies and other projects that will be able to help the project of the Mitigation Action Facility to address the key barriers and enable the broad dissemination of the mitigation technology. Another visual representation of how the entire process will look like at the project concept phase you see now. So as I said before, after eligibility check, we will start with the concept assessment. It will include 2 broad, big criteria. We will assess ambition and we will assess feasibility. And as you can see, ambition is then split into certain sub-criteria, including transformational change, financial ambition, mitigation potential. And as part of the feasibility criterion, we will assess project based on sub-criteria of project rationale and project design. As always, you can find more information in the general information document. And as a few next slides, my colleague Min will tell you a bit more about the general information document, and we'll also point out to other useful resources that you can look into and that will help you to develop your project concept. And just last point from me, thank you, Min, for already turning on your camera, is that please keep in mind that first of all, project concept phase is mandatory. Secondly, it is very easy. We only ask you to fill in a certain questionnaire, step-by-step questionnaire. You won't need to submit any additional documents, and you will have to, if you want to participate in the call for projects 2023, you will have to submit your project concept between 2nd of June and 31st of July 2023 using an open application platform on the website of the Mitigation Action Facility. With that, I will give a word to Min, and thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Nina. Also, hello everyone. Warm welcome from my side as well. And I would like to thank Nina also for your very informative instruction and detailed informations regarding the new core of this year, together with the concept phase, which is newly introduced to the mitigation action facilities from this core. And I hope that you all enjoy it and found it's very useful, like me today. And I'm going to share with you this very important document that Nina just mentioned before. That's the General Information Document, the so-called GID, because it is the very central source of information for the core for project 2023. It is aiming at assisting the applicants not only in preparing and submitting the project concept to the mitigation action facilities, but also in developing the outline and the proposals afterward, which is more, of course, more detailed than the project concepts. And it's also described the project cycles in very detail and step by step with all the key stakeholder would be involved in this process. And we also would like to provide further information regarding the assessment process, also the assessment criteria through this document. So just I hope that is also useful for you. And it's, as you can see here, the current version is in English, but it will be very soon translated into French and Spanish because we would like to reach out to as many people as possible. And therefore, we encourage you to download this document via our website. We also put the link to this document in this slide. So once you have the presentations, PowerPoint presentation and in our website, you can download it. And please be noted the presentation and also the recording of this webinar will be published in our website in the next coming days. And if we go over to the next slide, you can see that we have a lot of informations and resources in our website, Mitigation Action Facility websites. It has a handful of informations available beside the document that Nina and I just mentioned before. And I hope that all will be also useful and helpful for you. The fact is that we cannot cover all the details in this webinar, so we recommend you to check the available resources in our websites. And because we have many publications and knowledge products that provide you more insights and also more details on the key topics, like Nina mentioned before in all the projects criteria, like potential for transformational change, financial mechanisms, potential for mitigations, greenhouse gas emission reductions, gender, of course, key topics, and also the answers to the frequently asked questions. And with this, we have covered most of the key topics for today's webinar. Now it's time for us to go to the Q&A sessions. And I saw that you have put a lot of questions very interesting in the Q&A box, and thanks for that. We have a very interactive question and ask. So our colleagues are now very kindly to checking through all the questions and we have in the Q&A box, and we will pick up some of them right now to be clarified together with some well-prepared, frequently asked questions that we did receive in the previous call. And we do hope that our answer will be helpful for you. And for the other questions, we will try our best to respond to it in the next upcoming webinar, which is planned for the 17th of May. And if not, it will be covered under the clause of the clarification note, which also be published in our website soon. So please stay tuned and follow our websites regularly for the most updated information from us. And we would like to encourage you to subscribe also to our newsletter for such purpose. And another small reminder that I would like to highlight now, that please take some minutes to fill in the survey that my colleague Tanisha has already posted into the Q&A box at the beginning of the webinar. So please take some minutes to do that, and it's really helpful for us. And thanks again for that. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the words to my colleague Tanisha to start with the first question that we have.
Yes, thank you, Min. I will be reading out some of the most common questions that we receive. So one of the most frequent questions we receive is there an option to receive the mitigation action facilities feedback on a project concept before officially submitting it?
Unfortunately, the answer is no, it's not possible, because to be in line with the mitigation action facilities policies, we or the TSU cannot provide any individual's advice for the each project's concepts to ensure a transparent and fair competitions among all the applicants.
Thank you, Min. Another common question we receive is, as many NDCs include adaptation activities, can a project also include adaptation activities, or is the focus mainly on mitigation?
Actually, when you read about these facilities, the mitigation action facilities, of course, it's focused on supporting the implementations of the ambitious mitigation actions. We are looking for the projects that have the potential for transformational change towards the carbon neutral development pathways. Of course, adaptations activities might be included to achieve the overall project's impact or project outcome, but the focus of the project should be in mitigation aspects. Thanks.
And if we want to resubmit a project outline developed for previous calls, do we need to participate in the project concept phase as well?
I think Dina just mentioned it several times before. It is yes. The answer is yes, because the project concept phase is mandatory. If you have the project outline ready, you will still need to submit it as a project concept via the so-called open application platform. Just Nina also mentioned, and we will have a separate webinar for that on the 17th of May. And after that, you have to wait for the assessment and the selection results. And if the project concept is selected to proceed into the project outline phase, you will be invited to submit a project outline, including more detailed annexes that is also required.
So Min, can you give us a few examples of novel technologies that projects could pilot?
Yes, there is a lot of novel technologies, cutting-edge technologies that could be piloted in the projects. And we can give you some examples shortly that we already have or somehow in the outline before, like grid-scale battery storage or low-emission steel and cements, hydrogen's production and applications, or even oceans technologies or ocean renewable energies.
And for our last question, can a country submit more than one project concept in the call for projects 2023?
It is very interesting questions, and yes, it is possible, because each project concept is assessed based on its own merits and also based on the same selection criteria that Nina did mention before. And this is regardless of whether it's come from the same or different countries.
Thank you for that, Min. That concludes our questions that we had that we receive most frequently, and the ones that we have received from the Q&A now, as Min mentioned earlier, will be clarified via our clarification notes on our website. Back to you, Min.
Thanks, Tanisha. So we're almost at the end of the webinar. So now is it time for us to have a brief look on what's next. So you can see here our upcoming webinar on the 17th of May, where we will have a deep dive into the technical aspects of the project concept submitted via the open application platform. So you are all welcome to participate in this webinar, of course. And we also would like to point you to our webinar, which I mentioned before. So there you will find this presentation and also the recording of the webinar, which we will upload over the next few days. And of course, in case you have any further questions or queries, please feel free to reach out to our email address, contact@mediationaction.org. And last but not least, I know that Nina mentioned this several times, but now I also would like to emphasize this again, that if you are interested in submitting a project concept to us, please keep in mind that the deadline will be 31st of July, 2023, 3 p.m. Central European Summer Times. And with this, on behalf of the team, I would like to wrap up the webinar today and thank you again for your participation. I also would like to thank my colleagues Radhina, Nina, and Tanisha for joining me today in preparing and conducting this webinar. I wish you all a great day and see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.